I quickly want to speedrun the 14.6 changes because I think some of the things that have happened are a bit misunderstood. For example, I saw people's reactions to the Senna ADC nerfs, and it seemed to me that people were overreacting, which is also reflected by an insane drop in play rate, which went from roughly 7% to below 1% above Diamond 2. But according to win rates and some anecdotal evidence, she's still one of the best performing ADCs. The reason for this is that while on paper, if you look at the change, you might think Senna now gets nearly 4 times less souls, but in reality, minions are only a small portion of your souls in solo queue. If you actually look at the nerf that she got, it only means 6 souls per 100 CS, and because as Senna ADC you often prioritize poking in lane instead of perfect CS, you might only get around 70 to 80 minions every 10 minutes, and that's only going to mean around 4 to 5 stacks that you lose. For these reasons, farming Senna in solo queue should still be good, especially considering that she was probably the strongest champion in the entire game in the previous patches. Now also taking a look at the item changes, since that affects the most amount of players. At 2 items, the buff that IE and Navori got are basically the same. It's around 5 to 10 more pre-mitigation damage every single basic attack, but the Infinity Edge change becomes more significant into the late game. An easy way to know how much more damage IE does is to simply look at how much AD you have at the time of buying the item, take 10% of that number, and that is how much more damage you will deal with your critical strikes. On top of all of this, LDR and Mortal Reminder being buffed is obviously going to be nice to have. Perhaps an even more important set of changes is the epic item adjustments, which will take some time getting used to and to optimize, but one thing I already wanted to point out is that the nerfs have to be viewed comparatively, by which I mean that we have to compare how big the nerfs are relative to each other, which is something that the concept of gold efficiency was designed to do. While gold efficiency may be criticized for being an out-of-context stat and doesn't measure active and passive effects well, it's a very useful way to provide comparisons when numerical changes happen to items. Some strong items such as Fiendish Codex got hit significantly harder than let's say Hardbound Axe, which based on the community's reaction is an underrated item for most ranged Trinity Force builders. Bommy's damage got quite a lot weaker, which means you just want to upgrade it to legendary as fast as possible. Coalfield's Warhammer lost 175 gold value. Fiendish Codex lost 200 gold value. Glacial Buckler only lost about 50, but it has a better build path. Haunting Guys lost 100 gold value. Hardbound Axe lost 125. I think Trinity Force builders are still fine with the item. It's not actually that weak, and it is exactly gold efficient for the amount of gold that you pay for it. Hextech Alternator lost 100 gold value, but it still serves its purpose really well. Kirschei's Shard lost 10 damage, which is only going to matter for champions who abuse it in the laning phase for poke. Serrated Dirk lost 175 worth of AD, which by the way is way worse than losing the 3 lethality that people got mad over on Twitter. This is actually 2 times worse. Spectre's Cowl lost 133 gold value and is now better for passive players. Steel Sigil slightly has a better build path, and Brutalizer lost 90 gold worth of lethality. Tunneler lost only 50 gold value, it's still completely good, and Verdant Banner got buffed and is now 100 gold cheaper. And now to just quickly speedrun through the champion changes as well. Briar is still viable but has more skill expression. Cho'Gath changes are very small, Diana changes are even smaller, Galio is bad until they buff him, Gragas should still be an amazing flex pick. Karma mid is still viable, but you are more incentivized to build cooldown reduction and mono items, as it was suggested to me by a friend of mine. Kayn mains are complaining about the changes, and his win rate also fell 4%, but this is very difficult to interpret because Kayn is essentially 2 different champions at the same time, but he's definitely hit by the changes. Ornn got a placebo buff. It's very rare that you intentionally can make use of this cooldown buff. Rek'Sai is only quality of life, Shen is mostly placebo, Scion scaling is slightly better now. Smolder nerfs are noticeable, but it's more so the fact that the other champions that he's competing with got a pretty significant buff, and that's why he's falling behind. Chidimir's buffs are a complete joke. He's only getting around 3% attack speed at level 10, this is not good. Volibear's cooldown nerfs and movement speed nerfs can actually hurt his telegraphed dives and gank timings, but overall I still expect to see him, especially because he's a really good top lane and jungle flex pick, which can use its early to mid game oppressiveness to carry the now popular hyper carry champions to the late game. In the first iteration of this meta, we are probably only going to see crit ADCs, but as time progresses, I would imagine that more counters to these champions, which are super high range mages, who can outrange them and the ADCs can't interact with them, such as Hui, such as Vel'Koz, these champions will become more popular. And also Nilah and Kog'Maw is to be expected to be on the rise. That is it. If you want to see more videos like this, then feel free to subscribe. And thank you to everyone who joined the Discord, who subscribed, who commented, who viewed the video. I appreciate you guys a lot. Thank you.